Hey, what's going on, everybody? Want to
Hey
welcome.
everybody. Welcome to the Counterpoints podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Samantha Adams. We finally got the whole gang back together. And so I would
Yeah.
like my great and amazing co-hosts to go ahead and introduce themselves.
What's going on, everybody? You know what I'm saying? This is one of the co-hosts, Everett Stevenson, for the Counterpoints podcast.
Yes, I'm your other co-host, Malik Foster, for Cowboys Podcast, and we have a great topic for you guys today. Um, we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of removing romance from family building. We're going to be reacting to this clip of a young lady on Instagram where she is explaining removing the romance from your marital relationship in particular. So we have a little short clip. We're going to react to it, give you guys our talking points, and we'll have a discussion from there. You got the clip ready? Yeah, there it is.
And hear it.
Most of you want to know. I personally have never held marriage as a goal because I always felt that that would lead me to chase anything that would get me to that path versus simply being open to it if I meet the right person. Part of this, no doubt, is influenced by the fact that I had a parent that married and divorced 5 times. So I learned a lot at an early age about what marriage looks like in terms of legal and material matters and children. And when that opportunity befell me, love is love, but it did not feel right because I knew I had so much trauma to undo and so much of myself to discover. And at 22, that just didn't make sense for me. But something I have talked about on this page before 99.9% of you followed me was that I think we need to make Boston marriages great again. Not queer hiding, but the ideal of marrying any person who you feel like you can manage a household with for legal purposes. Because why? It's not about love, as so many of you have said, like a gotcha. Exactly, it's not about love. It's a legal status. I've talked about marrying a person you can manage a household with, which also frees up your personal life to where you can love whoever you love without the burden of your love for them being contingent on if they can manage a life with you. Now you can date and fall in love with a person who is unreliable, a bad parent even, whoever. That's because you like their vibe, because you have a life partner that you are legally married to. Something my friends and I talked about was, what if we all bought a house together and legally created a family that way, so that again, our ability to have community and support is not contingent on our ability to maintain our romantic relationship. I said what I said, but here's the answer to the question most of you want to know. I personally have never held marriage as a goal because I always felt that that would lead me to chase anything that would get me to that path versus simply being open to it if I meet the right person. Part of this, no doubt, is influenced by the fact that I had a parent that married and divorced 5 times. So I learned a lot at
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll go into my talking point real quickly, which I found very interesting. That she mentioned basically that you can keep the marital, or I guess the business aspect of your relationship between you and your partner, strictly business, and that gives you room to actually fall in love with the person who might not be a good financial match, but just romance, right? Strictly like, oh, I love this person. I love the way they make me feel, or I like spending time with them. But they're a bad person. Like, yeah, they're not responsible, etc. So basically, she's saying, hey, you can have your responsible man, and you can have your essentially a Pookie, right? Pookie and Ray Ray. Essentially, like, hey, yeah, I can have the best of both
But,
worlds.
but good brother
You
Millie,
know?
I might want to interject real quick and say she does
Oh,
not
you got
have
pushback.
her good brother. What she has is her girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? Because that's who she may have that home with. She has not found a man who would be willing to play that type of game that would pay bills and allow you to be in the streets. That just
Oh, yeah, you're right. It could be a bone
want
quick.
you have to do this
You're
on,
right if it is on
you
that.
know what I'm saying, same sex marriage only on paper though. You know what I'm saying? She's still free to do what she want to do and live how she want to live. This just
Okay, even if it is of the same sex, the same concept applies. She could have a responsible spouse and her irresponsible unofficial spouse
and
of
I'm
a
almost
romantic
arguing too
relationship.
before we get into that. I just think that it's not even a responsible because you're still taking it as somebody is providing. So
but that person doesn't have any responsibility.
No, but
like
see,
not financially.
Hold on, time out. Let me jump in.
She's
Let me
just
jump in right quick.
roommate with her friend. She'll be a roommate.
Wait a second.
She won't be a roommate with the man, though.
No, let me jump in right quick. Okay. So first of all, you can't say Pookie and Ray Ray because chances 9 times out of 10, Pookie and Ray Ray ain't getting married. Like, let's focus on. Let's remember that Pookie and Ray Ray ain't getting married. Pookie and Ray Ray is out here running the streets. You see what I'm saying? Bonquisha too. She's out here running the streets, and I think that the concept that she's talking about is like she's talking about the legalities of it and all the benefits of marriage that are outside of love and romance, right? And looking at marriage more like a business and less like a relationship. Let me rephrase that, because you can have a business relationship, right? But less of a romantic or romanticized type relationship, like a fantasy or whatever it is that you choose to embark on. That versus more of a business type of transaction. And so I think that it's important to point out one of the things that she says is that she has no interest in marriage because somebody in her family have been married 5 times. I can see how that witnessing that can have a negative impact on anybody's view of marriage, especially when she's got her own traumas and things that she has to work through. So, Malik, I'm gonna let you go ahead and finish your point, but I did just want to go ahead and interject with the fact that Pookie and Ray Ray ain't getting married.
Right, but you have a good point about the 5 years that past situation that she's trying to learn from, where I feel like she's creating a lot more walls to a marital relationship, to where she's like, well, obviously marriage is good for stability, responsibility, family building. I think she kind of is with that, like that's the ideal family situation, but the ideal personal situation is going after the person you really want, regardless of their financial status, regardless of their responsibility level, regardless of factors you would look at to say, hey, this is a good marital spouse. You might not look at as this person is the person that's good for me in a romantic setting only. So I think she makes a good separation of those two and explains that kind of good. But I think some of her past situations from other family members kind of creates that barrier for her when it comes to the marital aspect. So, because she says she's really not into the marriage thing like that, but I think she could be kind of sold into it, like, oh, okay, this is a good situation for me. I'm gonna be here, but I'm still gonna do my thing with this person, whether it's a man or woman, since he brought that up, But it could be whatever, like you said. But yeah, that's mainly it. I thought that was, I guess, to end it all. I think it's very interesting. My thoughts is, I think it could work in a very niche situation, but it's basically essentially an open relationship, but maybe just it's essentially what she's saying is an open relationship. Basically.
So, yeah, I want thank you, brother. I wanted to jump in here real quick before we go into that part, because I think you mentioned something about the whole needing to be together in today's society, and I like you mentioned that in regards to her having walls up per se for a marriage because of the things she may have seen in the first 4 or 5 marriages that she witnessed. Now, and me personally, I think that I see it the opposite, right? Like I see her like saying that she's seen 5 marriages, like seeing somebody get married 5 times. And so she sees that marriage does have some type of benefit, but then she's also looking at it from the mindset of like, okay, well, what's the most rational way for me to get married? Like, right? Like it's to say, well, let me take the romance, like you said, let me take the romance out, because maybe the man I want to romance me, maybe the man that I feel like has whatever, to your point, Malik, might not necessarily have the stability and the things to make for a good marriage per se, or marriage partner. But if I could find someone who does, someone who's more compatible for me to live my life with, right? Like someone that I have been able to be good friends with, and I have been able to have, a steadily good relationship. Maybe we've been able to, be friends over a decade or so. We've been on trips. We've done all types of different things in life. Whereas if, they were going to show me a standard that was going to look funny style, if you will, you know what I'm saying, I would have seen it by now. So now I trust that they're going to be a compatible partner. And they're like, okay, let's work with them on a more logical standpoint. I'll team up with you to get the benefits and things. Maybe I'm on your health care. You know what I'm saying? And, maybe now we get a tax benefit. You know what I mean? Whatever other benefits that they have that offers them from being a married couple that they'll be able to utilize. And then, like you said, on the side, she's able to now have that open relationship and date the Pookie and Ray Ray, who would never give her that. But now she can team with her friend and get the thing that she needs and the support that she needs, but don't have that comfort of the relationship. I don't necessarily think that that's the best type of relationship, but I just sadly feel as though that the way that we're moving in today's society, where people aren't taking responsibilities, people aren't looking for ownership, they're just trying to have what they want to have and be grown. Like, so imagine somebody wants to be grown and have grown responsibilities, but aren't able to afford themselves the ability to live a life, you know what I'm saying, with their own rent and things. You're going to team with somebody else. Y'all both are cool. And then you guys kind of live that college roommate, you know what I mean, type of lifestyle where it's like, okay, that's my people, we cool, you know what I'm saying, but I also do my own thing on the side. I'm just here so that I can have a roof over my head, you know what I mean. I think that might be the mindset.
Well, what about family? What about children? What about children? Like, how do children fit into y'all's perspective about this?
I also want to say too, I think they had made a movie about this. What was it like? Chuck and Larry or something like that. Some like firefighter dudes who married for some like benefits back in the day. I just thought about that.
But in the theory,
I think you made a good point though. You asked what about children. I'm gonna just answer that real quickly. I think that's a really good point, because that and then in turn would almost that's a really great point. Like, because if you having this marriage based off of compatibility and you feel like you rather choose the bear over the man, so you're marrying somebody that you feel comfortable with, I'm assuming your homegirl over the man, then you have a child, someone that you may want to, have a child with. How does that family structure look like? Or are you able to try to have that with someone that you would want to have the family with, which hence would be like a more traditional marriage? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. What do you guys think?
You can, first off, let's back up a little bit, right? First and foremost, it doesn't have to be like, if you're a lady, it has to be your homegirl. If you're a dude, it got to be your homeboy. Like, you can totally marry your homeboy for the purposes of what she's talking about. You see what I'm saying? Because if there's no romantic feelings between you two, and it's platonic, then, and this is just going to her point, because I don't agree with what she's saying, right? But just to play, devil's advocate a little bit to my own point that I haven't gotten into yet, when let's say you have Mary and Bob, they're my two fictional people all the time, Mary and Bob, right? Mary and Bob, they're homies, they've been homies forever. They have absolutely no romantic feelings towards one another, but they make a deal. They come to an agreement, like maybe in high school, like, look, if we're not married by 35, we're going to get married to each other and we're going to have kids, right? 35 comes around, neither one of them are married, they're both single, neither one of them in a relationship. They're like, all right, boom, let's go ahead and try it. So we can go ahead and, number one, everything is expensive. Food's expensive, housing's expensive. And, it would be easier if we could just put our money together so that we can live comfortably, right? Because we trust each other, because you got to have trust. You can't have this type of relationship without trust at all, right? The kind that she's referring to. Like, you got to be able, because that's your whole life, livelihood, and finances, right? So, and it's a business transaction. So boom, you have them, put their money together. They choose to go ahead and buy a house, right? And then while there, it's like, one of the main reasons why most people, I'm not going to say all, because some people have no desire to have children, but most people get married so they can have a family. And that includes having children, right? And so what do? Right? The female's biological clock is ticking and she wants a kid, but she may not have any romantic feelings towards her friend, but they're married, right? So what do? Could you adopt? Yep. Could you do artificial insemination? Yep. Get a sperm donor? Yep. But you could also have a baby with your homie, right? And so you choose to have a baby. If you choose to have a baby with your homie, now you have to set examples and create all of these lessons and life lessons for your child. The other part about it is that, we talk about people embarking on these types of relationships without, I'm gonna let you finish. I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna let you finish, E, and then I'll get into my point.
Oh no, no.
Oh, and Malik, can you answer the question based on what you
Yeah,
were referring to? What about kids?
yeah. So when it comes to kids, I can see that being a little bit of confusion, right? Where yeah, they see the marital aspect and business responsibility, the scheduling, stuff like that, and the parenting. That's cool, but they might not see the romance, affection, and love where they seeing like one of the spouses going out openly to see another person. That can lead to a little bit of confusion. Um, Maybe until they're older, they might not understand it. I think as young children, that's where it's key. Like, but once they become preteens, teenagers, you can explain it a little bit better. But I think it could create some confusion. Mommy or daddy issues would be increased, I think, because it just would be confusion because it's not structured because it's just open. It's basically an open relationship, and it depends on how that person handles it. You gotta be very careful who comes in at home, how it's handled. But if it's just free, like how she said, like, hey, then I think that could create a lot of problems between the
Yeah.
child. Like,
So from my opinion about what she had to say, I don't agree with it. Like I do know that some people do that, like they marry for business purposes and it's more transactional than it is romantic. But you know, and this is a very personal thing for me. I had this conversation with a friend of mine earlier today, and we talked about the fact that marriage is also very spiritual. You know what I'm saying? And so, regardless of what you believe in, for a lot of people, it's spiritual because you're making this covenant, not just a legal. It's not just a legal contract. It's also a legal covenant. It's also a covenant or promise to one another under the Most High. So if so with that being said, like, marriage, and we're talking about marriage. We're not talking about situationships and just having a roommate, right? We're talking about actually merging your life to somebody else's. If your spouse's finances messed up, that affects your finances. We're talking about having the ability to get certain benefits if somebody died without a will. We're talking about all these different legal benefits that marriage provides to a spouse, right? And then when you add children in the mix, I 100% agree, Malik. It has the ability to confuse the child. Does that child grow up to have, emotional issues or lack thereof because they grew up in a household where there was love, but it wasn't that type of love, right? Like, yeah, my parents love each other, they're homies. You know what I'm saying? And they love me, but without that romantic form of love, how do it's not to say how do you know whether or not you're being treated right, but it's like something may be amiss as you grow older because it's something that you never really witnessed or experienced. Case in point, when we have these discussions about children growing up in single parent households, right? A lot of times we talk about how, and it doesn't happen in every household, you're aware of that, but males typically that grow up in single parent households tend to be a little bit more dependent. Not always, but they do. And females typically become a little bit more independent, creating a clash of the titans. Because then when they get together, he's trying to lead and guide that household, and she has a hard time allowing to let loose of those reins because she spent her whole life being more independent, right? Or enabling the man to not necessarily stand up where he needs to stand up and do the things that he needs to do in order to guide that household. And so when you run into those issues, you see that trend because it's a direct result of growing up in that single family household. Now, if you take that situation and now you add a man in the mix, but there's no like love, like there's a different type of love. Let me not say love. There's no romantic love there. What does that do? How does that psychologically affect those children? You know what I mean? And what does that look like for generations, right? Because remember, a lot of the things that we experience in life, we pass down generationally, whether it be because we want to protect our own children, right? Or it's a learned behavior that we want to make okay, but I'm not saying it's not okay because it's obviously and always going to be to each his own. But at the same time, like, what does that look like? And what does it look like for that same kid? I got you, Eve. What does that look like for that same kid who finds love and doesn't know how to manage it because they never grew up in a house witnessing what it's supposed to look like when they find that? Because there are plenty of romantic relationships that are very successful marriages and they build very successful families.
So yeah, for me, I think sadly, I think we're in an era where we're seeing some of what that looks like. We talk about kids who may have parents who don't brush their hair, don't teach them how to elbow it. I mean, like, put lotion on their elbows or how to comb their hair as little girls or whatever. Like how to put barrettes and whatever bows, whatever girls do. Women teach young ladies how to present themselves off into the world, and young men, how to keep their composure, how to learn to lead, how to be hardworking, how to not be dependent upon, and to also be interdependent and look within. I think, but you also mentioned the point on a romantic side, right? Like, so what does that mean as far as building a relationship with, like, building a romantic relationship in which a person doesn't necessarily know that, small things, pulling out a chair, opening doors, whatever, having flowers, seeing them be affectionate, holding hands, things of that nature, showing them how. I think it leaves a group of children to do what we've seen a lot of people have to do, which is um having to try to learn and unlearn some behaviors. And I think that would be something that would very much be the case, right? Because it'll be very much normal for a kid in that type of environment to grow up and see their parents do these things and never say, I love you. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe never take the time to build an emotional relationship with that other significant spouse, because everything is just business, right? Like, so it has a very transactional feel to it, even though, that's why I think it's kind of tough, because like you said, if it's that situation where you mentioned originally, where it might be a guy and a girl that's kind of working and say like, hey, we're really cool with each other, let's work this out. Sadly, I'm willing to say, like, that seems like that would be the type of situation that you would want to, like, if you think that you could tell somebody in the past, like, yo, if we don't work out by here, if we don't find things on our own, let's just be together because we could probably see ourselves working some stuff out. Like, don't that seem like that would be the person that you should maybe try to work things out with and try to, like, just do things right now? You know what I mean? But I think it takes some time, experiences that people have to go through before they're able to get to a point where, as we just recently, I think there was news that one of the actresses, Vivica Fox, said something like in her 60s now that she's willing to look for a husband. And I feel like, this kind of plays into this model a little bit, because it's like, now that you've reached a certain point of living your life and doing the things that you wanted to do, you want to find somebody to go down the road with you with. And that's cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure you can find that, because there's probably guys that's in that age group that would like to find that. But the thing is like, we need to almost show, like, we should almost work to try to have people to build with us and go down the road through all of these experiences, so that when you at a later point in your life, you can kind of be towards some of those years where you can look back at the hard work that you guys have put in and the work that you're constantly still putting in, and be proud of what product that y'all was able to build, right? Like the ups and the downs, the things that you may have seen other people not make it, you know what I'm saying? All types of things not work out. You guys can say to yourselves through whatever, hey, you guys have been able to be consistent with the love that you've shown each other, and the love that you guys give each other. And I know that kind of spurred from the conversation of just the kids and what they see, and versus like what that relationship may be. But I think that, you know, it will require those kids to maybe look to find out how they may want to love. Do they want to have such a thing as a romantic love? And then how much do they value that, right? Like, are they like their parents that want to be mindful of that romantic love and say, okay, how much do I like this person, and that feeling of the butterflies if it's a young lady, or the somewhat nervousness, if you will, if it was a young man, that you feel for another woman or a person, the significant other, that you feel like, how much of that do you give weight to versus how much do you give logical sense to, and saying, well, does this work out for me? How does this work out? And I feel like that's what we're seeing a lot in relationships as it goes nowadays. People are
so E and Sam, is this like a situation you're for or against?
I'm not really for it, but I'm not against it either. I think it's to each his own. It's just not something I personally would implement in my own life. You know,
I think it's situational. That's what.
Yeah, but one of the other things that I wanted to pose, like honestly, it's more like an arranged marriage. You know what I'm saying? And so,
yeah, that's what it's kind of like.
It's definitely more like an arranged marriage. Only the thing is, you get to pick that arrangement as opposed to like,
it's like a right.
You know what I'm saying?
But mistress or
right,
what's the male version of that? You're
right, like Coming to America, almost. You know what I'm saying? He came to America to go ahead and sow his royal oats and found his queen because the other one was still hopping on one leg like a orangutan. Like, it wasn't working for him. You know what I'm saying? But the thing about it is, even in arranged marriages, one of the aspects that I think that the girl missed completely is the fact that you can grow into love. You know what I'm saying? Like, the more time you spend with somebody, you can learn.
Your paramour. Sorry, mistress paramour.
Oh, your mistress or paramour. Yeah. So, you know, we're not talking about side pieces. Look, he's using legal terms. Talking about side pieces, y'all. Side pieces. We're not talking about that. I mean, he is. I'm not. Because we're not doing that. We're not.
No, it's the person you really want, but you're just not legally married to them.
Then I'm going to marry the person that I want. You see what I'm saying? Like I don't. It doesn't make sense. Like, why am I going to be in a marriage where I'm giving somebody else legal access and benefits to me when I'm actually in love with someone else? Like, I'm not gonna. And that was another point that I wanted to make.
Well, like, think about it like this.
I'm not. Hold on for just 1 second. I want to make this point. I'm not going to, like, considering the fact that that's not for me, right? When I get married, I have no intentions on marrying somebody that's not going to be responsible enough to be able to provide for me as a woman, right? And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean you got to pay all my bills, but I mean, provision falls in so many different categories. Talking about provision of emotional support, you know, provision financially, provision of my physical, you know, well-being, and even spiritual provision. So, you know, when you're talking about that provision, why would I embark in a marriage with somebody that's not? How do you love somebody that's not willing to, you know, provide for you anyway? How is it that you know, and because even think about it, in some of the worst relationships, there's still some form of provision there, one way or another, right? And maybe it's an emotional support, maybe it's financial support, maybe it's spiritual support, maybe it's just you make me laugh, you make me feel good, you ease my mind, you give me peace. You may not be doing the other things that you're supposed to be doing, but you are strong in one of those areas. Otherwise, how do you even catch the attention of a person or keep the attention of a person without offering and providing something to them, right?
Oh, it's a way. You know what I'm saying?
Not, but I'm saying that is even, because that's what I'm saying. Even if it's completely physical and it's more based out of lust and things like that, that's still provision. You see what I'm saying? So when you're
But see,
talking about that, there
right,
has to
it's not
be
just
there, you
provision.
know what I mean? There's still something there. And so when we say that, like, you eventually fall in love with that person based on something that they provide, even if they're not providing everything. So you find yourself over here in a marriage with somebody that you may not necessarily romantically love it because it's a business transaction, but then you're in love with somebody else. Are you really going to be giving your all to that business relationship if you are splitting your time over here with your romantic relationship? Because especially if there's kids involved, the kids get lost in that, and it teaches them ways that may not necessarily be conducive to a productive lifestyle once they become older, especially if they don't know how to appropriately manage that. If they don't have the assets, they don't have the finances, they don't have the ability to separate the two, because no two people are the same. And so just because your parents are able to do something doesn't necessarily mean you are. And so, I wanted to go ahead and make that point, because when you talk about taking the romance out of family, yes, marriage is absolutely 100% a business. Yeah, you can go ahead and embark on a relationship or family with a friend. You absolutely can, but you have to remember, like, at some point, love is going to show its head. It's going to peek through one way or another. But that may not necessarily have to be like this deep form of being madly in love with somebody, but love is going to show up. So as much as you want, as homegirl in the video is like trying to avoid that based on the things that she's witnessed with other people, you can't fight how you feel, right? You can recognize what it is and manage how you respond to it, but you're gonna feel how you feel. And so you can manage your response. You can choose whether or not you're gonna dwell on that or whatever. But when you love someone, that love is going to sit there, and because it's an energy, it doesn't die, it just changes. That's it.
No, I agree. Like you
Right.
said, when you love someone, you just can't treat them bad. In the words of Donnell Jones. You know what I'm saying? But I agree. I think Malik, you posed a question. I didn't get a chance to answer it. I want to go ahead and answer it. How do I?
Yeah,
What do
go ahead.
And then after that, I don't know if you had a closing remark, or if not, I'll go ahead and wrap it into bring it into the.
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. So you asked us, what do we think about this as a thing? And honestly, again, I love being devil's advocate.
I'm asking, are you?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna answer it. I am for
Okay,
it.
go ahead.
For it. I am for it. I think that I don't necessarily think, and this is why I think that what I would like in my lifetime. We label this, you send them swinging, but I like to think of, like, one of my favorite R&B songs is "The Next Time She'll Be a Friend," and you know what I'm saying. I reference that by thinking that again, like, we should want to have the person that we be with be somebody that we, what I'm saying, feel like we like to be around, that we want to
That's
kick it
true.
with, that we
Very much agreed.
comfortable with, that we feel compatible with. Like, that should be your partner. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how much of it is devil's advocate, as much as it
You
is like,
just can't trust them with kids, financials.
right? Yeah, like, exactly. Like you said. Now that's when it becomes one of those things. Like, you
You're
hope
like,
your friend is somebody that's responsible. That
Right.
that's good sense.
like, why you got the baby on top of the gas stove?
Yeah,
Right.
you hope y'all
Baby in
just
the car.
compatible.
You got to buckle the seat.
And all the bad things in life. But
Baby
yeah,
in the car with no AC. What's up, Jenny? How
Hey,
you doing?
Jenny.
what's going on, Jen? But yeah, I feel like that's what you want to have. Like, you want to have that in your partner. You guys want to have that. You know what I'm saying? And what y'all got going on and what y'all doing. So to me, I feel like that's the move. Like, you know what I mean? You want to go ahead and date somebody that you feel like is your best friend. date somebody that you feel like you are compatible with on a lot of things. And we do understand how challenging that is, because that's why we're having this conversation, because it's very hard for some people to find someone that can fit all of those characteristics in one person. But so I don't know. Like, I feel like I answered it and said yeah, but then it sounds very lawyerish.
It depends.
I said the baby on the gas still, you're like,
Lawyerly answer. It depends.
All right. So,
Yeah,
all right. With that being said, I want to go ahead and go into our book of the month this month, which is the 100 Marriage Decisions Declarations You Need to Make Before Getting Married. This is a book by Lawrence Aja, which is basically a book that kind of asks couples questions such as how do they want to deal with things like do they want private school? Do they want to, raise their kids in certain neighborhoods? Do they prioritize certain things in the relationship? How often do they want to go on dates? Do they want to have, maybe some uncomfortable conversations that you need to have, and then some things that you may not have talked to your spouse about that you should, so that before these situations come up, you can kind of understand what they're looking at and what they're thinking. So 100 Marriage Decisions by Lawrence Aja. And then we have our Black Business of the Month, which is Club Euro. If you guys are ever in the South Florida area, for a lot of the area in particular, you guys can check out Club Euro. It's a Black-owned business that's over there in the Los Olas area of Fort Lauderdale. So you guys can check them out. And before we leave, we're going to go ahead and get ready to jump into our motivational minute.
I got you. So the quote that I found, it's from Letty Cotlin Prograben. I'm sorry if I butchered his name, but it says, if a family were a boat, it would be a canoe that makes no progress unless everyone paddles. And so, regardless of what side of the fence you're on, whether or not this is something that is right for you, because again, it's very subjective and there's no judgment. It's to each his own, you just got to participate. Everybody got to show up. Everybody got to do their part. Some people may have a bigger part than others. Some people's parts are equal. Some people's parts are just different. But either way, you got to show up. Because if you don't show up, it's not going to work. I don't care if you choose to, enter a family or marriage with your friend, your homie, or if it's a romantic relationship. You got to show up. If you don't show up, how is it going to work? Right? So, just keep that in mind and just remember you got to show up every day. So with that brings our podcast to a close. We want to thank each and every single one of you guys for tapping in. We hope you enjoyed the topic. Shout out to Counterpoise Podcast and my co-host, because it's been a while since all three of us been on the screen at the same time. We done had things happening. Life been lifing. Things been up, things been down, but either way, we are solid, so don't, if anybody's like, I wonder if they, nope, we not beefing, never was, we always cool, these are my bros, we cool, we Gucci over here, so we just be busy. With that being said, we thank y'all so much for tapping in with us right here on YouTube Live, over here on the Tagged app, and also on our Instagram. So if y'all have any topics that you would like for us to talk about, make sure you hit us up, let us know. And also, if you want to be on the show, please, please, please let us know. We like company. So we'd be more than happy to have you. So just go ahead and reach out, let us know all that good stuff. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, tell a friend. And if you want to follow us, well, I'm going to give you my socials. I have the fellas tell you that, I have them tell you theirs. But for me, if you want to follow me, you can follow me at Samantha Renee 77_ESQ or Samantha ESQ _ And if you follow me on the Tagged app, that's going to be Sam I Yam. That's 2 M's to Sam, 2 M's to Yam, and then the I is like this little triangle with eyeball in it. So y'all make sure y'all go ahead and hit me up, follow me, and all that good stuff.
Y'all guys can catch me at Malik M. Foster on all my social media handles, and my counterpoise is Malik_counterpoise. So be sure to check me out. Posting content pretty consistently, so check me out.
And you guys can find me at that guy 2104 as well as CP_EV on Instagram. And appreciate everybody for tapping in. Love y'all and catch y'all later.
See y'all next week.
All right, guys. Peace
Peace.
out.